health, in their academia, in their jobs, in their finances, in their families. So Lord, would you give us favor to help set the stage, to help set the rules and the way that we want to live? Give us favor, give us direction. We praise you in advance. We love you and we trust you. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
So I'm going to call our meeting of July 16th, 2019 to order. And the first up, we have an open forum. I'd like to remind you that the open forum is the public's opportunity to address council on any matter related to the city that is not on the agenda. Our rules and procedures for council meetings apply to the open forum and include disrupting a public meeting as a violation of state law, and no cursing is allowed. Your comments are limited to 3 minutes. In accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act, council cannot discuss, consider, or take action on matters not listed on the agenda. And the first person to sign up tonight is Amber Teal. Good evening.
Good evening. You said my name is Amber Teal. This is my charge to everyone. We have to be better. We have to love more, hate less. We've got to listen more, talk less. We've got to know that it's everyone's responsibility. Every single person here, every single person who's not here, every single person who doesn't want to be here, every single person who agrees and doesn't agree. It's our responsibility to make this world a better place. Megan Rapinoe. I want to give you a glimpse into the realities of some of the people here in Nacogdoches. Let's think about how the 12-year-old boy who I had to calm down 3 years ago during our speech therapy session because he feared that his parents wouldn't be home when he got there because ICE was in town invading homes. Let's think about how he feels today when that's happening again 3 years later. Or the Army veteran who moved back to Nacogdoches 7 years ago to attend SFA, double majored in criminal justice and sociology, graduated in 2015, and who can't get a job with a paying living wage here in Nacogdoches. Think about the college students who are in a new town, new people, busting their butts, serving and giving back in a city who sees them as just visitors. Think about the mom who had to bury her 18-year-old son 117 days ago after him being shot 6 times. He was a junior Olympian in track, moved away from NAC 2 years prior, and had only been in town 3 days before he was murdered. He left behind an 8-month-old son. These are all people from our community whom are important and make this city what it is today. As a parent, I do my best to allow my children to form their own judgments, and I do all that I can to expose them to the different people, different cultures. My daughter's 6, she wants rainbow hair and to wear a hijab and for her name to be Hennessy like her Spanish classmate. There's also a part of my life that most of you would never understand. I'm the mother of a brown son who used to want to be a police officer. After the murders of Trayvon Martin and Tamir Rice, it was a really hard time for us as moms of brown boys in America. As an attempt to be proactive and expose my son to police officers as much as positively as possible, he interacts with them at community events, shake their hand whenever he sees them, and he visits the police station. A couple months ago, we were riding down South Street when I was pulled over for a headlight being out. My son panicked. He began shaking and crying. He thought something was going to happen to me despite all of my proactive efforts. I calmed him down. Everything went okay, luckily, but that's an experience that a lot of people don't have to worry about. Last year, I was misquoted in a letter to the editor in the Daily Sentinel regarding a statement made in the NISD school board. I sat down, spoke with that person. I didn't go back at him. I offered to sit down and have coffee, and that's what we should all do. I encourage everyone to reach out to others, ask questions, have an open mind, and understand at their point of view, and most of all, be willing to listen. And this is another quote. I'm tired of carrying this invisible burden of other people's fears, and many of us are, and we shouldn't have to, because we can change this. Because we can change the action, which changes a story, which changes a system. And that was from a TED Talk by Baratunde Thurston. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next person is Alec Johnson. Good evening.
Good evening. So nice to see you all. My name's Alec Johnson. I live in Nacogdoches. And I want to talk about the problem with policing drawing so much attention recently in Nacogdoches is happening within a context that is poorly understood. The context is the era of the new Jim Crow we now live in. It has been extremely well documented by the author Michelle Alexander, who coined the term, and a copy of the book sits before each of you now. It is a gift from Tim Bryant of Boss Light Books and myself, and I'm hoping you'll have an opportunity to read it. It's an important book. In it, Michelle Alexander writes, "The war on drugs is the vehicle. The entrapment occurs in 3 distinct phases. The first stage is the roundup. Vast numbers of people are swept into criminal justice systems by the police, who conduct drug operations primarily in poor communities of color. They are rewarded in cash through drug forfeiture and federal grant programs for rounding up as many people as possible, and they operate unconstrained by constitutional rules of procedure that were once considered inviolate. Police can stop, interrogate, and search anyone they choose for drug investigations, provided they get consent. Because there is no meaningful check on the exercise of police discretion, racial biases are given free rein, effectively guaranteeing that those who are swept into the system are primarily black and brown. The conviction marks the beginning of the second phase, the period of formal control. Once arrested, defendants are generally denied meaningful legal representation and pressured to plead guilty whether they are or not. Prosecutors are free to load up defendants with extra charges, and their decisions cannot be challenged for racial bias. Once convicted, due to the drug war's harsh sentencing laws, drug offenders in the United States spend more time under the criminal justice system's formal control than drug offenders anywhere else in the world. This period of control may last a lifetime, even for those convicted of extremely minor offenses, but the vast majority of those swept into the system are eventually released. They are transferred from their prison cells to a much larger invisible cage. The final stage has been dubbed by some advocates as the period of invisible punishment. A unique set of criminal sanctions are imposed on individuals after they step outside the prison gates, a form of punishment that operates largely outside of public view and takes effect outside the traditional sentencing structure. These sanctions are imposed by operation of law rather than decisions of a sentencing judge, yet they often have a greater impact on one's life course than the months or years one actually spends behind bars. These laws operate collectively to ensure that the vast majority of convicted offenders will never integrate into mainstream white society. They will be discriminated against legally for the rest of their lives, denied employment, housing, education, and public benefits. Unable to surmount these obstacles, most will eventually return to prison and then be released again, caught in a closed circuit of perpetual marginality. Let the first town in Texas be among the first to lead our way out of this nightmare. I thank you for your attention.
Thank you. Jeremy Small. Good evening.
Greetings,
Welcome.
Council. My name is Jeremy Small. As we engage in progress and forward thought, there are issues that we must address in order to fully move the needle, not only addressing lip service, but in actionary steps. Whether we all want to accept the act of police brutality, the truth is this is a thorn in the side of marginalized communities. Happenings of police brutality can be traced back to the task force origin. Although in today's time, police brutality isn't as blatant and frontline as it was in the civil rights era and its predates, the evidence and sickening behavior still exists. These egregious acts are not solely about physical mistreatment, but the profiling and discrimination that goes along with it. As an educator and a member of a disenfranchised community, there are horror stories that I have grown up with from experience and now hear students who have lived through these traumatic dealings with police. As the student pointed out on a post circulating via social media that states, telling black men to respect cops so they do not get killed is like telling women to dress appropriately so they do not get raped. This interesting parallel sat with me, and I was forced to ponder the truths behind it. I will be the first to say officers deserve the utmost respect, but that also comes with respecting the civilian they are in contact with. Deeper, disrespecting an officer should never warrant in the taking of a life, excessive force, nor the torture of memory that comes with the negative experience with an officer. Students of color constantly live in a state of anxiousness around cops. I was raised to always show respect, and the same respect will be shown to me. But simultaneously and unknown, I'm sure, by my mom, she will whisper sentences such as, "Don't stare at police officers too long unless they are talking to you. When you pass a police officer in a car, don't turn around to look and see what they're doing, or you'll look suspicious. If you are passing by a police officer and it is not cold outside, avoid putting your hands in your pockets so that you do not appear as a threat." In black and brown communities, this is part of the survival curriculum that is taught consciously and subconsciously. Where we should feel protected, we feel as prey. Where we should feel safe, we feel secluded. We cannot ignore the history and truths in which people who experienced these horrible acts speak of. Although Nacogdoches has not experienced an act of severe riots due to outcries, the water boils through every ignored plea. We can be proactive at this point and not reactive. In schools, teachers are familiar with the words that guide instruction first, relationships and rapport. There's a saying in education that says children won't care how much you know until they know how much you care. Our police force should also take this principle. We can work together on efforts to build better relationships, to actually know the people you are policing, and to put boots on the ground in an effort to heal and mend the broken relationship history has provided. As we ask for a citizens review board, we aren't asking for control over matters. We're simply asking for a way to create a system that our nation is based upon, a system of checks and balances. Thank you.
Thank you. Rodney Dolphus. Good evening.
My name is Rodney Dolphus. I reside at 370 Sweat Circle, right here in Nacogdoches. I am a minister of the gospel of Jesus Christ, and as such, I am called to tell the truth. And my truth today is that I have never actually been a victim of police brutality. However, I have been witness to such occasions on numerous amounts of times. I have seen my family and friends harassed for no apparent reasons. I have seen people in my neighborhood where I grew up who has been brutally slammed to the ground with knees put in their backs and in their necks simply for exhibiting and exercising their constitutional rights to free speech. I'll be honest, I've even been present where there's times where a certain amount of force was necessary, but it then became excessive once they had the suspect handcuffed and subdued because they continued to wail and beat on him. With all that being said, let me point this out. As the young man before me just said, we are not here to condemn the police departments. We will concede to the fact that there are officers who does still believe in protecting and serving. However, if they too turn a blind eye to the injustices that are going on, should they not be considered just as guilty? I mean, after all, if I'm with a friend and he commits a crime and then is later caught, aren't I also in jeopardy of having accessory charge placed on me as well? So should the officers that turn a blind eye to the fact that there are injustices. Now, let me reiterate, we're not condemning the police department. We're here saying that there should be some way to hold those officers accountable who are using their power and their authority unjustly. To end my statements before you today, it is time for injustice to stop. And to those who say we should just get over it, we say no, we won't just get over it. Thank you.
Thank you. Heather Olson Beal. Good evening.
Hi, I'm Heather Olson Beal. When I came here in May, I urged you as a city council to create an action plan to address the safety of our African American, Hispanic, or Latinx, and LGBTQ SFA students and community members. I'm here again as an SFA professor, a parent of 3 kids, ages 16, 19, and 22, and a community member, to ask you again to do something concrete, progressive, transparent, and healing to address the concerns I have heard and read from many students of color at SFA and in our community about their personal safety. During my 11 years here in Nacogdoches and at SFA, I have heard countless pleas from students of color that they do not feel safe in our community. I heard them a few years ago when the Texas Ku Klux Klan decided to host their annual meeting in Nacogdoches County. I heard them 2 years ago when our president issued what's now called the Muslim ban. I heard them when our president said he would not renew DACA recipient status. And I heard them most recently when our president announced ICE deportation raids in cities across the country. And I'm hearing them again now. I'm hearing students say their parents tell them not to leave campus on the weekends or at night. And I have 2 college-aged kids that I don't have to tell that to. Last fall, I told a student whose car had broken down that she should have called the police to help her. And she said, "I'm too scared to call a police officer in Nacogdoches." And she chose instead to walk many miles in our town in an unsafe way because also we don't have sidewalks. I'm hearing current students say they might not come back to SFA to complete their degrees. I'm reading online from students in other parts of Texas who are saying, "I was going to come to SFA next year, but now I'm not." You, as a city council, need to not just listen to these concerns, although please do listen to them, but take concrete action to change the culture in our community so that everyone who lives here can be assured of their safety. These SFA students may be legal adults. We call them emergent adults at my house. But they're someone's kids. They're someone's brother, sister, aunt, uncle, friend, or neighbor, and they're on loan to us from their own communities for the time that they are students here at SFA, and we hope that they stay. We need to do right by the students and the families that send them here to us. I urge you to convene a committee made up of people who represent our diverse community to talk about how to repair the troubled relationship between the Nacogdoches Police Department and some segments of our community. I beg you to act, create an action plan that will bring multiple constituent groups together to talk openly about this issue and that will be empowered to take real action to better our community. We must do this for political, economic, ethical, legal, and most importantly, moral reasons. My parents always taught me that when you know better, you must choose to do better. In this case, we know better. We have real data that shows that we have a policing problem here in our community. So now it's time for us to do better. I don't have the power to do that as just a citizen, so I'm asking you as a city council and as our mayor to use your power for good and make this important work happen. Thank you.
Thank you. We are now going to move to the consent agenda. And if council wants to have any discussion about the minutes, if not, chair will entertain a motion for approval.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded. If no discussion, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion passes. So for our regular agenda tonight, we are going to have an actual work session. We are going to discuss two topics that are going to be led by fellow council members. So the first topic we have will be economic development, led by Garth Hens. Our second topic will be led by Roy Bolden, and that will be on homelessness. For each topic, they are going to give either a brief presentation or an overview. We will then have public comment, like we do for our agenda items, and then that comment period will be closed, and council will have their discussion. Because it is a work session, no action will be taken on anything tonight. And then we also voted at an earlier meeting to limit these our workshop sessions per topic to 1 hour each. So we will break at a comfortable time right around that hour or before if we have finished. So, Councilman Hens, would you like to go ahead and begin?
Would love to. Thank you.
Thank you.
So at a high level, what I'd like to do is just float a couple ideas, things that are preventing us from growing that I can see, and then one specific idea that I'd like to float out there and just get the council's interest and also the public's interest as well. So one of the problems that I see that I think that we can resolve over time, given some staff assistance and doing some research, is the need for commercial space. Something I've talked to Larissa at great extent over the last 3 or 4 years. We've looked for office space for our company. We've gone on a handful of searches. I'm a dreamer, and so I'm constantly thinking of new businesses that I can find some way to try to land and start. With that comes an awful lot of failure, and that's okay. But with that also comes the opportunity to search out a real estate market, and that's one pinch point that I've seen is there's just not that much available. A lot of our main drags, our arteries, North Street and University, are already developed, and so we've got to displace something or redevelop something, which is pretty cost prohibitive for a lot of the smaller businesses. So I'd like to float a couple ideas out there that might address this and gain some traction just on gauging interest, I suppose. One of those would be really focusing on Old Tyler. We've got coming in the not so distant future. I remember as a kid in 87, 88, hearing about I-69 that was coming so very soon. And finally, I can say it is, I think. We certainly seem to have traction there, and we're seeing signs of that, and things have been approved and funded, so that's good. But with that, we really don't have a great way to tie into the West Loop. It seems to me that Old Tyler would be an amazing additional artery to focus on, really pushing commercial development along that road. It feeds right into SFA downtown area from the Northwest Loop. So I think that would be an interesting area just for us to discuss, having some intentionality, perhaps reaching out to homeowners. There's a lot of properties there that are abandoned, that are run down. So reaching out, and out-of-town owners as well. So reaching out to some of those, trying to do what we can to stimulate some development there, including rezoning. And I'll certainly not step on city planners' toes on what can and can't be done and what's wise there, but just giving a focus there. The other thing is looking at a two-headed monster. Right around North Street, there's lots of congestion, and there's also very little property available that's commercial. We've got some pharmacies in Central Texas, and in Georgetown, it's interesting to see. Round Rock is similar, but in Georgetown, they've done a lot to develop existing properties there along some of their main arteries into commercial spaces, and I'd be curious to see what that looks like on one of the parallel streets of North Street, specifically Pearl. Potentially even going in and revamping Pearl a little bit, not a major overhaul. I appreciate that would be a massive expense to go in there and make that a clone of North Street. But even considering some crazy ideas like running North Street one way and Pearl the other way, because then immediately it solves a couple problems, potentially. We need a traffic engineer really to vet this. I'm not claiming to be anything of the sort, but look at something like a Parker down through Maine, have Pearl Street function as the southbound lane, and North Street function as the northbound lane. Then everything in between the two now becomes particularly valuable and well-placed commercial property. So for the foreseeable future, with everything we've got coming in with I-69, now you've got office space and some other B2 caliber spots that would be really easy to develop. So those are the two things that address the lack of commercial space. The other idea that I'd like to float out there is a passion of my wife's that by default is now my passion, is eating healthier, and I'm working on that, and eating more locally, which is absolutely something that I appreciate. Even in the past couple months, I've evaluated business plans from a couple different young men that want to start a business here where they grow organic, high density, or they build organic high density farms. The one kicker is that there's not a great place to offload their product. So there's a demand, I think, and some of you probably eat way the heck healthier than I do, and that's more power to you. I love to go to the farmer's market, but it's really inconvenient because it's a couple hours on a Saturday, period. And so when we finish this meeting, I need to go swing by the grocery store and get something. The farmer's market isn't open for that. I think the threshold is pretty high if you are longing to eat locally, to eat seasonally. It's pretty tough. And so I think establishments like Granary Street, and you've got a couple other ones there in Tyler that are somewhat similar. Those are fantastic, but same thing. It's on the other side of town. So I can tell you for sure I'm not going to head down there after this meeting. What I'd love to see is us exploring the opportunity to place our farmers market perhaps somewhere else within the city and use some sort of an anchor tenant, possibly Granary Street or somebody like them, where it's open 5 or 6 days a week. Then have a city-owned building there where we've got some interior space, some booths that we could rent out to local farmers, local businesses that want to be there on a consistent basis, and then have something similar to what we have now as well, where there's exterior booths as well for kind of the one-off events in the Saturdays. So that's just a pie-in-the-sky idea. I just don't think it costs that much to explore it. So I'd love to look at that and get some tangible numbers if there's enough interest. So the commercial space, Old Tyler, having a focus on that. The Pearl Street, pie-in-the-sky idea there, and then the same thing with the farmer's market idea. So I'd like to put those out there and get some feedback.
Okay, so is there anyone here tonight that has a comment that they would like to make about one of his ideas or proposals? Yes, Marilyn, speak loud.
I think doing the North Street one way and Pearl Street the other way is awesome.
Okay.
Because just going to Walgreens this morning, it's nuts.
Okay.
You shouldn't go to Walgreens. I'm kidding. That's a joke. That's a joke.
Uh-oh.
For the record.
Okay, someone else. Would you please come forward? Give us your name and address, and then your comment.
My name's Ethan Fothery. I'd rather
Yes.
not get my address. I live here in Knack. The Pearl Street idea, I think, is interesting. The first thing that initially comes to mind, a few things initially come to mind. One that is currently kind of a frontline community. It's a fairly low socioeconomic area. So if we go in and commercially develop, are we going to push whole communities out of where they call home? Secondly, As I'm sure you all know, Bonita and Lenana Creeks have a history of flooding pretty horribly. So if we were to look at commercial development on something like Pearl Street, I think the first step would be looking at how to solve flooding in Bonita, which is currently already affecting, like I said, low socioeconomic communities. So,
Thank you.
yeah.
Thanks. Anyone else? Oh, yes, please come forward. Hi.
Hi, Dorothy Jackson Tubbs, Northwest Ward. Yeah, Old Tyler Road and Pearl Street are historically low socioeconomic. Why can't we do like Reggae? Reggae's just as parallel to North. Why do we have to pick the low socioeconomic areas?
Okay. Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. Public comment is closed, so now we will have council discussion. And do any of you, would anyone like to start?
On the Old Tyler Road, what section are you looking at to be commercial?
Candidly, I'm totally open. Just exploring, making that a more vibrant artery from the loop down into town. Right now, there's hardly any business along there. There's no jobs being created along there. The property taxes generated from that are incredibly nominal because there's ag zoned areas and there's houses, lots and lots of vacant property along there. So that whole stretch is what I'm throwing out there as a
In between
suggestion.
Austin and Powell Street?
I'd say between the loop and all the way down to Maine. Just like we have North Street and University.
Now, between Austin and Powell's is residential as it stands today.
There's a little bit, there's an awful lot of ag in there as well.
Residential ag, okay. But I agree with the young lady. That would be pushing the residential area probably out of. And it was mentioned it might be a blighted area, but that area can be cleaned up. But I don't think it's commercial-wise beneficial for that area. Now, I don't have a problem with Austin to the loop.
Let me throw this out there too. The goal in those neighborhoods, in those sections, the goal isn't to make those businesses. The goal
No,
is
no, I know, I
those long
understand that.
stretches
No.
in between that
Yeah, I understand that.
to make it something that's more, it contributes to certainly the property taxes and also creates jobs. Because right now we severely lack places for, if you want to find an office space, there's pretty nominal places you can go. If you want to have a retail business, there's pretty nominal places you can go.
But it's residential and Head Start program schools. I don't like being commercialized.
Yeah, I think inside of Austin would be very difficult. It would be ultimately a similar challenges to that of developing Pearl Street. You end up displacing a lot of people, and without an alternative for the residential issue there, then it would be a tough one to do, I think. Not impossible, but difficult. And some, especially on Old Tyler Road, some of those neighborhoods are older neighborhoods, and it's hard to ask an entire neighborhood to move or to completely sort of
on that thought,
rework the way that they have known life.
Do you have to, if we're focusing on that as a development, do you have to have them move? Like, it doesn't seem to me that you do. Maybe on Pearl Street, that becomes a trickier
Old Tyler
situation.
Road, probably a little bit less so, certainly, because there's more physical space there. But anytime you get into relocating, especially long-term residents, it is going to be an unpopular choice, I can tell you
Sure.
that.
I guess when I throw that out there, I literally don't have in mind rehoming everybody that lives along that road.
Yeah,
But rather those
yeah.
properties that are vacant or run down or abandoned.
And there's a
altogether.
lot, and the bulk of that is actually beyond Austin on Old Tyler, and then on Austin itself, between Old Tyler and the Loop. There is a lot of undeveloped space in there that I think would be really good for that, and possibly since Austin between Old Tyler and Pearl Street is not highly developed, that may be a better artery tying into Pearl and North Street, rather than trying to come through an existing residential area with a lot of additional traffic.
Yeah, Austin all the way from Pearl to the Loop.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's all very newly developed and lightly developed so far, and that I certainly understand what you're talking about, trying to find new areas, new venues for whether it's retail or other commercial development, because there are certainly some limitations with the traditional commercial areas in town. I would definitely agree with that.
NAC is certainly, it's got a history, and I don't know that we had master planning 100 and
Yeah.
whatever years ago. So considering that, I mean, any development on West Austin, similar to East Austin, I suppose, and that's already mostly developed, but it's going to be this mixed use type of situation. Is that not a viable option there between that whole stretch there?
It certainly would be. Old Tyler Road there are enough residences on Old Tyler Road that are close enough to the road that expanding the width to serve additional traffic might be a bit of a challenge, but it's not unthinkable. My main concern with doing that end of Old Tyler as a conduit from the Loop into the middle of town is that you get into an area that would be very difficult to expand the roadways. Old Tyler between Powers and Main Street can certainly be a challenge, especially with the railway right-of-way there. Powers itself presents a challenge there between Old Tyler and North Street. And I'm not sure what would be the best answer to funnel traffic to the downtown area or to Main Street or North Street from there without creating sort of a separate problem. I think funneling traffic from the Loop as a new conduit for more traffic, West Austin may be a better route for that, just because it is not terribly developed now and doesn't have any older properties, and it's not hemmed in with residential areas there.
Got it. That makes sense. So the focus, I suppose, would really need, if there's going to be development there, it would need to be mixed use to be able to fit into those spots that are open and not already developed. Is that the gist of what I'm?
Yeah, and it's, obviously it's something that would take a lot of community input to understand how people feel about the effect of the additional traffic, because if you try to develop an area near the Loop, you're going to create a great deal of traffic between North Street and the Loop, just sort of, not necessarily as an intentional thing, but it will be a consequence of developing inside the Loop for commercial use.
Sure.
And honestly, the traffic flow and not displacing current residential areas would be my main concerns with doing those areas.
I think one thing that's concerning to me is that we've got a lot of traffic coming. Like, we think it's congested now.
Oh, yeah.
We've got substantially more that's coming, and there's not really a healthy way to get into downtown or into Pearl. If we look at Douglas, like 21 West, talk about one that's just laden with homes
Yes,
and residences
yes.
there, that's not really an option. So I certainly hear you on West Austin. And if expanding the road isn't, that really wasn't the focus of what I was getting at as much as having city look at, when I look at the appraisal district, I see an awful lot of Houston, Atlanta, Dallas owners, out-of-town
Yeah.
owners on buildings that are, it appears to be, have deeded along the way 10, 20, 30 years ago. That tells me
Oh,
it's,
yeah.
it's
That-
probably vacant and has been for quite some
Yeah.
time. So those really making a push to encourage developers and make connections to the owners. And
There's a lot of land inside the city limits that is owned by people who, quite frankly, don't even realize that they own it.
Right.
Or in some
Right.
cases have never seen it, at least.
Right. And I think it's those, for me, that I'd like to be a little bit more proactive in trying to track down those owners while we have staff and can bring some attention here, because we really can't do the same thing on North Street or on Reggae. Reggae pays taxes and it's developed. There's people living there, whereas
Yeah.
we've got all these vacant properties there where it could be a great site for a business or another neighborhood. There's plenty of room in there, but
Yeah.
just some
Yeah.
intentionality and seeking out those opportunities.
Yeah.
Otherwise,
And-
it'll just stay.
You're right in that on the west side of town, especially where the I-69 corridor is proposed at least to end up, I think is that at least the current thinking, or more or less the decision that's been made with that. We are going to need some more avenues between the loop and the center of town. 21 will be one that can be used. It is at least already currently 4 lanes, which certainly helps. 7, Fredonia, South Fredonia, will be one, at least to feed into South Street. Beyond that, it gets a little more complicated, certainly.
Sure.
With, for no other reason than the existence of Texas Farm Products there that will kind of limit what can be done between there and downtown, but at least to feed a main corridor, both of those are possibilities. But we will need additional ones because we will have a lot of additional traffic coming in town from the west side.
Sure.
Go ahead.
Where are you trying to direct traffic? Because most cities direct you away from downtown.
I'd say to and from. When I look at Nacogdoches, it's like a Houston without a 290. This isn't developed where you've got, think of all your arteries that you've got running through Houston. To me, that's if we're going to have a healthy place for economic development to actually happen, we've got to have places for people to actually go and develop that.
Right.
And
But-
my goal is to highlight those arteries and proactively reach out and find those properties that are going to sit vacant otherwise, track down owners and try to stimulate in some way.
But if
the
you're
sale of
building
those
up
properties.
commercial-wise on Old Tyler Road, you don't want to direct people downtown.
Why not?
I mean, the majority of employees could use the loop to come into their work locations. Why would it need to go downtown?
I think we want as many people downtown as we can get downtown.
Ms. Fisher?
I'm thinking and digesting. So, I mean, I think that I definitely hear the displacement concerns. And so if we're talking about looking at mixed use or developing areas without displacing people, then there's got to be a way that we can look at long-term effects and whether that does something to revive areas without displacing or hurting property owners, or whether it ultimately does end up pushing a mountain. So what that does is, even though at least immediately we're not looking at taking over residential areas, if in the future that's something that pushes people out, I mean, there have to be studies on that.
Sure. I think, I love what Ms. Teal said. There's no livable wages here. You got to create opportunities for businesses to come in. It's not going to happen on accident. And it's very, very difficult. There's unnecessary barriers when there's not property that someone can come in and start a business. It's easier to go to Lufkin, candidly, So that's a bummer. That's something that we need to proactively fix. And so I hear the displacement. It's, there's a cost. There's pros and cons to everything. I absolutely hear that. And the goal needs to be doing so, doing any kind of development intentionally and trying to mitigate as much as you can any collateral damage that's done there. But with any development, there's going to be some people that are frustrated. I understand that. But without that, there's also no jobs, no livable wages. And that's a pretty big problem that we have.
I'm wondering, first of all, I appreciate your enthusiasm and creativity. That can be very infectious. And I think that's great. But I'm wondering if we can package it with a study of the other opportunities that we have in town, like extending Main Street east. You know, we can extend that and open up some smaller avenues for development. We can also request TxDOT to firm up their footprint for I-69 so we can see what that infill is going to look like. So that we've got some smaller, something like Mass Motorsports out there. We
Sure.
can get some more industrial. But we can look at some smaller parcels where we can actually maybe afford to start doing something while we're working on a larger project. There's also some talk about developing maybe some retail near our creeks if we protect our creeks in a way that can be tourist in nature, which would be great for businesses, for some of the businesses. So if we could package this to where we're studying, what other possibilities are there, but I think we do need a large swath sort of to look at for the future for developing, because we are running out, like you
Sure.
said, not only of
Sure.
housing
Infill
space,
opportunities
but
are very limited.
absolutely, absolutely, within our city limits, and we can't expand any further. We're getting pretty locked into that. So, but I like the idea, if we're gonna look at one thing, then let's try to look at everything, what we have available with maybe smaller and bigger projects in the future.
Absolutely.
What do you think about that?
Expand north.
Expand North Street?
Yeah.
Well, that's.
There's
good.
businesses now that could use rehab
Yeah,
or,
north and south.
yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
there are a lot of existing property opportunities on the south side of town that have been, I think, overlooked for a long time. On the entire southern half of the town, there are a lot of possibilities there that, for whatever reason, I have my opinions of what the reasons are, but we have a lot of area, as you said, inside the city limits that is available for development. The southwest corner, the south part of the loop in general, is going to be, I think, a very popular place to develop with the onset of I-69. And the general idea of increasing opportunities, wages, things like that, those tie in with things like the school district, as Dr. Groman knows, and as that improves, it helps our chances of bringing in new businesses. There are other elements that, such as the school district, that are largely outside our control
Sure.
here. But all of those things have to work together. The availability of affordable housing, I think, and that's something that there have been ideas floated, at one in particular, in full disclosure, floated by my father, which is to have a design competition, and he has gotten architecture departments at A&M and UT on board with doing this, and for whatever reason, the idea has not gained traction with the entities that have funding available both in Nacogdoches and in Lufkin to do this. But the idea is to create a design competition for affordable housing that makes it affordable by design, not by cheap materials, cheap land, not the traditional ways of doing affordable housing, but doing it by design so that you get something unique, interesting, something that would be a draw for potential employers, I think, and also would, in the process of actually doing it, provide jobs locally as well.
Absolutely. Oh, I love that. Yeah, my intention here isn't that I have some idea that I'm working out and I'm looking for approval. It's
Yeah,
to
no.
start the discussion.
Absolutely, yeah.
And highlight some of the things that I see Larissa, palming her
And
forehead.
you're
once in a
absolutely
while.
right. We do need to start bouncing more ideas and looking at more possibilities and trying to be more creative about it.
What
without a
about
doubt.
the farmer's market? Does anybody want to eat more healthy?
Yeah.
I was
yeah.
gonna say it,
Accessibility.
on the displacement, because the way that you presented the farmers market idea in a city-owned, the booths in a city-owned area, in a place, I mean, do we have displacement concerns with that? Because, I mean, I think that's something that would be welcome in communities if it wasn't pushing people.
Yeah, I don't want to
out.
kick anybody out of their house to put a farmer's market in there. What I had in mind was
Very Austin.
remedying a situation that we currently have that I love Pearl. Like that specific spot though is in a pretty floody area to Ethan's point, but it's actually in a floodway, so it's been kind of grandfathered in, I believe. Have to ask Steve to be for sure, but get it out of that and get it into a place that is not occupied residentially, but rather either a city-owned property or something that we could work to buy.
Yeah. I mean, I know in Lufkin, they've had a pretty good deal of success with using their location that's on the loop, that's pretty easily accessible. You know, we have, even inside the city limits, without even going out to the perimeter of the loop, we have a lot of possibilities that I think might be good possibilities that would give it more space to grow, more space to make it more inviting currently, even as it expands. So a lot of people have a sentimental attachment to that location, certainly. But for the good of expanding, as you're talking about, the offerings and the availability of space at the farmer's market, I think certainly looking at either a different, less constricted location, or possibly even a second location on the north end of town. That's something that I actually had thought about a while back, and just doing another smaller farmers market, giving people more opportunities to sell things, to enjoy what is being sold, and not having it just in the one location.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's a really, if you haven't been out there, I'd encourage you to go. We have an amazing part of our community that is so ridiculously faithful in 100-degree weather. And it is a really neat part of town. Part of me would hate to see it not be right by downtown, but there's also pretty tight space restraints there that make it really almost impossible to expand right there. So
Parking is a big issue there.
parking is a big issue. So, yeah, those are the areas that I really wanted to lay out there. So if there's more comments, by all means, but just wanted to put those out there. And I don't know the official process, what we would need to do to have staff look at some of these, if I need to put something a little bit more concisely together and float it by as a request for information, or what exactly would be the appropriate
We
venue.
would need to put it on an agenda, as an agenda item, and then have a little bit more discussion and some more public comment.
Awesome.
And then we can go from there, so we can actually vote, since we can't decide anything tonight.
Perfect.
So, does anyone have any other comments? about this?
I wanted to say that I appreciate a lot the brainstorming and the initiative to do this, because we've heard a lot of concerns about low socioeconomic areas, but also when we talk about economic development, that touches everything. I mean, if we are able to bring in businesses that provide jobs and better paying jobs for people, then that's lifting those people up. I mean, Nacogdoches has a really bad median
income level, and a lot of poverty. And so I think that when we talk, displacement definitely needs to be talked about, and how we affect those areas definitely needs to be talked about. But we're also talking about how to lift up communities, and so I appreciate that.
And being proactive, planning for the
Sure.
future, not just letting it happen and then reacting.
Yeah, I do believe that a high tide rises all ships, and we've got a situation out there where there are a lot of food deserts in Nacogdoches. And the way that the grocers look at decide, I'm not a grocer, but I can tell you what they in general do, and that's they're looking statistically. And so they're not going to drop it somewhere where there's super low income and there's no jobs available right around there. So to me, if we can help boost an area that's been suffering for a long time and there's very low property values, low incomes, then we can give them a little bit better shot at trying to bring in other things that are needed, like the grocery stores.
And I do have something that I will be discussing in the future with council when the time comes, that will kind of tie in both with what you're talking about and what Roy will be talking about as well, that I think could potentially benefit both areas.
Awesome.
But not to be too cryptic, but
Well, thank you for engaging, entertaining me, and thank you all for hearing me out and for your comments as well.
Great. So we're going to move to our second topic of discussion, which is homelessness. And Mr. Bolden, you have the floor.
This was not my original choice, but after researching the other issues that I was looking into, and it was property values, the homes that, and I think Jay mentioned it, that there was homeowners that didn't even know they had structures in Nacogdoches. And that leaves open to those that doesn't have home to move in, even without consent. And I didn't realize that that was pretty rampant, especially close to my community. But as a whole, rural America really don't think we have a homeless problem. That's mainly because line of sight. If we don't see it, there's no problem. But as of January 2019, this is in regards to 2018, the year 2018, Texas had an estimated 25,300 experiencing homelessness, as reported by HUD, Housing and Urban Development. Of that total, 1,917 was family households. 1,935 was veterans. 1,379 was young adults between age of 18 and 24. And 3,000 of those was individual chronic homeless. They didn't give us any data according to the school situation within the state, but they did do it U.S.-wide, and they estimated that there was 115,000 public school students experience homelessness over the course of the year. And they gave basic 10 reasons for most of individuals being homeless. Number one was unemployment, not being able to pay rent or mortgage, evictions due to low wages and not having funds to pay rent or mortgage, addiction, substance abuse. Number three was family. And it says, why some children are homeless? This is addition to the number three being family. Conflict or breakdown in family life. Sexual, physical, and emotional abuse in the home. Lack of access to employment opportunities or insufficient income to pay rent and living costs. Drug and alcohol issues, mental health issues, overcrowded living conditions, or the death of a parent. Domestic violence, number 4. Number 5 was poor personal physical health and mental disabilities. Number 6 was divorce and separations. Number 7 was poverty. Number 8 was lack of affordable housing. Number 9 was gambling. Number 10 was physical and or sexual abuse. They also gave living wages calculations, which we know is, we are pretty close to mid or below. The federal poverty guidelines, number 1 is $12,060 compared to, if you go to number 8, and that's high as they listed. And this is one person in the household to 41,320 to 8 people in a household, which is not very much money. Equally important, 110,000 LGBTQ youth are homeless in America and comprise of one of the most vulnerable homeless population. A significant percentage of these youth live in communities that do not accept them because they are LGBTQ. These children make up 20% of the nation's runaways. They take to the streets because of family rejection, abuse, and neglect. They are also most likely than heterosexual runaway youth to be victim of sexual assault. Worse yet, they are also twice as likely homeless youth to commit suicide. Still, homelessness is mainly a problem for American society older citizens. And one other note is, unfortunately, increased engagement from police and code enforcement tend to relocate rather than resolve a housing crisis or addiction. Increasing discomfort by forcing people to relocate frequently does not achieve long-term behavior change. Jail time is costly to taxpayers, about 60% more expensive than permanent supportive housing, and more tickets make it more difficult to secure housing. Now, here's the goal. A home is for all is the goal, and it would be difficult to obtain in rural Texas, even though everyone in our community deserves a place to call home. If we could end homelessness, everyone would benefit, whether it is improvement of our neighborhoods, better school outcomes, or less burden on our criminal justice system. Is a home for all an obtainable goal, unattainable goal? Maybe so. But being proactive in preventing further homelessness should be at least our goal. What can we do as a community? Our community can make impactful changes in homelessness when we start by saying yes to working together, even if we feel like it is not an issue. Innovative program, replacing areas with mostly unlivable, condemned houses with affordable housing. And one of the important ones is taking a second chance on people. And that as far as like obtaining jobs. Why should anyone care about ending homelessness? It is a suffering condition. It is not good for anyone. It is not good for people living in a place without a place to call home. It is not good for neighborhoods that are hindered by the social and economic impact of homelessness. It is not good for communities that would only thrive when residents can do more than simply survive. Working towards the goal of a home for all, and this is what I'm asking from the city council. Even though there's no action taken, I'm still going to present it. Here's what I'm asking the city council. There are some proactive steps that I encourage us, local government, city, communities, neighborhoods, business leaders, and county officials to take to address unsheltered homelessness. Provide staffing or funding for professional street outreach services that are housing focused and trauma informed. Coordination between departments, housing, parks, code enforcement, police, health and human services. Adopt neighborhood policy strategies that promote referrals and safety for a person without housing. Develop street outreach team. Provide public restrooms and resources for litter disposal. And along with what Mr. Hines has stated, Councilman Hines has stated, create employment opportunities for all people, with or without a criminal background. And that's going to be it. I did have a little note, about, it's difficult finding how many homeless people there are in rural East Texas. In the metro areas, you see them underneath bridges and et cetera, and they do what they call a point entry count. Now, they do a point entry count in Nacogdoches, but it's at the shelter. We do not know how many that may be along the creek banks. But I do know that Godtail, they have 120 beds, and it's an average of like 76 beds per night that's taken. And they serve 6,877 meals per month, which average out about 76 per month. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone here that would like to make a comment about this? Yes, ma'am. Please come ahead.
My name is Sheila Shepherd. I was born and raised here in Nacogdoches. I do jail ministry. And one of the biggest problems that I have, I was born and raised here in Nacogdoches. I was in Dallas for 33 years before God sent me back here. And since I've been back here, I've been going to do jail ministry every Saturday unless God has me in another direction. And the first year that I was doing jail ministry, my biggest problem was, why is it that there's not a rehabilitation place here in Nacogdoches for those individuals when they get out of jail? And I realize and understand everyone doesn't want to change. But what about the ones that are willing to make an effort to change? Why is there not a rehabilitation place here? Why do they have to go all the way to Beaumont or Tyler or where? All this land here in Nacogdoches, and you don't have a rehabilitation place? And then, just me, I'm just being real. I'm just real, and I know everyone has their own opinion, and they see things differently, they perceive things differently. Godtail is good, but why is it that there's not a organization, even within Godtail, that would train these individuals that are there, so they can get some type of training, so they can go out and find a job? I mean, I don't get it. And the ministry, like I said, I do jail ministry, and I question some of the ladies that do jail ministry, because I'm not the only one. There's 4 or 5 of us go up there, and I began to question them about this rehab thing. And at this present time, some of us have gotten together and out in Douglas, off of Douglas Highway. It's in Douglas. We're in the process now, and I really would appreciate some help or some assistance with it. We're in the process now. We have a building that we're renovating right now, so that when these women and men, especially the women, that's what we're focused on right now, when these women get out of prison and they don't have a place to stay, and they don't have a place to stay, they can come there and stay. We have beds already. We have 6 beds, and we have some dressers and things that we're getting together. But like Sister said earlier, come on now. We all need somebody, and we all need someone, and everyone needs some help. Everyone does. Our situations may be different, but we all need some help. And like I say, I realize and I understand everybody don't want to change. But what about those individuals that have a desire to change, but they don't have someone to step in and say, okay, I'm willing to help you. I do that all the time. And I do it because I know this is what God wants me to do. And I'm going to say this, and I know this is off the course. You were talking about Old Tyler Ruard. That's where I was born and raised. I don't know Tyler Ruard, and there just do need some things that needs to be taken up there. But I just wanted to say, come on. I mean, just like I said, I will continue to say it, and I will forever say it. I realize everybody don't want to change. But what about that man or that woman that wants to make a change? What are we gonna do? We're gonna just throw them to the side and don't even think about them? If it was your parent, or your sister, or your daughter, or your child?
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, sir, please.
Hello. My name is, I'm super nervous.
Oh, okay.
My name is Dylan Graham. I'm a Nacogdoches native. I have lived here my whole life. I was born at Nacogdoches Nacogdoches Memorial Hospital. I just want y'all to get a chance to know me and know who I come from, what I come from. Dorothy Jackson and Miss Sheila Shepard were 2 of my high school teachers. Miss Sheila Shepard taught me in alternative school, and Miss Dorothy Jackson taught me in English in my 9th grade year of high school. And I'm a local artist. That's what I do for a passion. I'm a certified tattoo artist. I'm a muralist. I've done murals for Purple Haze, all kinds of local businesses around here. So art at the Boss Light. And I think it's extremely hard for artists, especially people who, I don't want to, it agitates me when people put their tattoos out on display for a sense of kind of have people feel for them because it's your decision. But people do feel certainly different about the way that I look whenever I come up to people and I go to apply for jobs, and I'm honest about who I am and what I support and what I stand for. And I like to think that a lot of people around here, because of what I support and how I look and what I stand for, some people think that I am, a bad person or whatever just because, Lord knows what. But my family is the Juries. My uncle is Keith Jury. My grandparents are Harlan and Peggy Jury. My grandpa died in 2012 because he was on dialysis. He had diabetes. And my grandma passed away in 2014 on the way back from Disney World. I was 17 years old. My mom was in prison from the time that I was 6 to the time I was 13. Whenever she got out of prison, I had already been to rehab twice, juvenile 4 times, and what started my whole journey was possessing probably 0.2 of a gram of marijuana at school, at Mike Moses Middle School. Officer Hensley, probably one of the best campus police officers I've ever met in my life, let me ride front seat to all the way to Gregg County, and told me, son, this is not where you need to be. This is not who you are. You do not need to be in there with those criminals. So, straightened out, got out. I stayed on juvenile probation with Officer Anthony Landry for, I think it was 2 years. I got off and stayed out of trouble all the way up until probably about 2 years ago. I got on probation for possession of marijuana again. I don't have a speeding ticket on my record. I don't have nothing like that. Only possession of marijuana. And I'm not here to advocate for cannabis. This is not what this is for. I'm here because I think it is extremely hard for people like myself to find work here and to be accepted here. And I'm predominantly Native American, even though I have a lot of English blood. It hurts me to see I went to Oklahoma, and I seen all my people, all people that I know that have the same blood running through them, running in me, working at Domino's, working at the lowest jobs, and just seeing other people who have taken their land, and it's just horrible. It makes me feel sick, and I've never paid attention to it growing up because it was never brought to my attention in my household. The Juries are not Native American. The Juries are not. That's not who they are. Uncle Keith Jury is my uncle, and from the time I was about 10 years old, there was a saying that Keith Jury walks around with a jar of Vaseline in one hand and a Bible in the other hand. And I like to think of Nacogdoches as a whole is a lot like that. And I'm very passionate about this, and I'm very passionate about what I do. I went for disaster recovery in Hurricane Harvey, and just like Miss Sheila Shepherd, God told me to be an artist. I went to disaster recovery in Hurricane Harvey out of my own pocket, didn't go with the crew, took a 2-wheel drive, Dodge Durango down there. Could have swore I was going to lose it there towards the end of it because the water was so high. Pulled a toddler out. I don't know why God told me to do this, but as soon as I pulled a baby out of the river, and God told me, if you want to be an artist, you're going to have to drop everything you do and be an artist. And that's what I did. I quit my job at the sawmill, and sat around and drew pictures all day didn't worry about perfecting it, just wanted to be consistent. I moved to Shreveport for about 3 months and got my car repossessed between trying to juggle a new apartment, a new job, paying probation fees, and just the whole mess of it all. Now, keep in mind, I'd already taken care of over half of my fees, and I completed all my drug classes. And if any of you were to sit here today and talk to my probation officer, Jack Krennick, he would have you believe that Dylan Graham would run rampant and do as he pleases. And that's not who I am. I do what I do because it's what I have to do as an artist. But if I need to go and, it's hard. It's really, really, really hard for people like me. I thank y'all for sitting up here and going through what y'all have gone through with the cases and stuff. I know it's stressful, but please, we do not need more donut shops in Nacogdoches. We need more places for people like me, people to be active. Nacogdoches is going out of their way to make sure that y'all are more active, far more active than Lufkin. Y'all have parks, y'all have trails, y'all have so much. But we need something for the artist, something aside from the SFA artist. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to make a comment? Okay, we will close public comment for this. And council? Any discussions?
One of the things that you mentioned was the criminalization of homelessness, which I think is a major issue. You're giving people a criminal record, which then hurts ability to get jobs. And so I would be interested to hear because that's something concrete I think that local government can do to make an impact. I would be interested to see what Nacogdoches has as a policy for encountering homelessness. Chief Stevie and I have talked about it some, but I don't know if at a future council meeting we could put on an agenda a presentation on what it is that Nacogdoches does, or if we have policies in place, or if you know, you can enlighten me, so that kind of stuff doesn't happen.
We don't have a policy in place.
Because I mean, it seems to me a waste of county and city resources to jail people. I've heard the sheriff speak on multiple occasions about the jail being overcrowded and not having enough resources, and so it would be good to see what we're doing at an enforcement level.
Do you have anything?
Not currently.
Okay.
Forgive me, was that Miss Williams, was that her name that had the passion for the?
Shepherd.
Shepherd. I just want to encourage our general population, anybody watching this, it's people like her that are passionate, that start nonprofits. I have gotten engaged with the NAC Coalition and Hope, helping other people eat. It's unbelievable. 850 families a month they serve food on $70,000 a year. That is ridiculous. That is so efficient. And so I hear her, but I also want to encourage you, if you have a passion, get into it, because it doesn't do itself. This city is busy keeping water going to your house and sewage going away from your house and your trash being picked up. They run a very, very effective and efficient operation. But if you have a passion, those things don't just do themselves. And so I hear that and I empathize, but I also want to encourage people to get motivated and get involved themselves. So I appreciate the civic engagement that we've had today. That's fantastic. I love seeing this many people here. And want to encourage you, you're not alone. If you have a passion, dig in and find out who else does. There's an awful lot that's going on behind the scenes in Nacogdoches that has been really, really encouraging to me. So, thanks.
Do you have anything you want to add?
No, I'm fine.
I have a question, another question.
Sure.
Do you know of any concrete steps that other local governments have been able to take to address the issue without, I mean, because we don't have tons and tons of money just lying around, right? So it's not like we'd say, let's build this, okay, let's do it, right? And so, but there's got to be something that we can do.
And the closest, well, at Tarrant County, they built affordable housing. In Houston, they just move you from one location to another. As a matter of fact, I know a couple of homeless people in Houston. And I used to see them when I go to Houston, but the city came and cleaned that area up. Now they just moved underneath the bridge on the other side. So there are some counties that's building affordable housing, and others are just relocating people.
That's an area, that and the availability of mental health care especially, is somewhere where I'd really like to see the state work a lot harder. Texas, in my opinion, is not very good at supporting efforts to help homeless people in general, but especially with those issues. So as much as we can encourage our representatives to try to push those issues in the legislature.
Yeah.
How much traction they'll get, I don't know, but I certainly have encouraged at least one of our representatives to do that, and I'd like to see more of it.
The help for the mental illness, mental health, we have issues with having enough counselors and therapists, even in Nacogdoches.
Oh,
We
yeah,
ha-
absolutely.
Even for our youth in the CPS community, we have to send them out of town.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So,
Yeah, and I feel if there were more, especially state-sponsored facilities, that are considered to be stable as employers, that the availability of those positions would probably help drive more people into that field.
Yeah.
That's what tends to happen with almost any field, but.
yeah, and the state would have to be part of it because the cost is extremely high.
Yeah, it is very expensive, and it's, Nacogdoches County does not have the resources of Tarrant County or Harris County, certainly.
Exactly.
Well, it seems to me that it's if you're talking about homelessness, you cannot help but talk about affordable housing.
Mhm.
To me, those kind of go hand in hand, and so we could further this discussion in talking about revitalization of our neighborhoods that
Yeah,
are
absolutely.
affordable in terms of grant programs, matching grant programs, or something of that nature where it's a little more affordable. But I think it bears further discussion. Just trying to plot out exactly what we're trying to do and the results we're hoping to achieve.
Yeah, I mean, the way I chose this subject last was because there was an area in my part of my ward that I was discussing with, the city manager. Maybe this area would be affordable housing. I mean, for the homes that's there now that's falling apart, those, I would like to think that those people would like to live into a new affordable housing. And that brings a different attitude in your mind. You want to look for work when you move into a new home, in my opinion. But I think it's all going to have to start with affordable housing.
Yeah. Well, and both of these topics tonight tie together very closely. If the jobs are there, if the jobs are better, it helps alleviate certainly some of the homeless issue. And adding things like affordable housing in there certainly serve both issues and can benefit both issues, I think, tremendously.
Anything else? Okay. If not, we will move to agenda item number 6, and that is consider city council work session topic selection for future city council work sessions. Mr. City Manager. Good evening.
Madam Mayor, City Council, as you know, that you have said that you're going to take the second council meeting of the month and use it for a work session. I do want to remind you that you need to discuss budget work session if that's what you want to do, whether or not you want to do it next month, or whether or not you want a special session, or whether or not you want both. And so it's council driven, and so you just need to pick topics for the next meeting. You will actually vote on it, which is permissible. Be happy to answer questions, Madam Mayor.
I believe, in my opinion, we should limit the topics to 3 if we're going to do topics, and unless we are going to do the budget workshop, which I believe we do need to have. And I do like the idea of having it with our second meeting so that more people can attend. But we can certainly talk about it.
Yeah, I would certainly agree with that. I kind of like the idea of possibly having a special session in addition to the regular second meeting next month.
So having 2
partially
budget?
because I'm not sure that I have the intestinal fortitude to go through the entire budget deliberation process in a single sitting.
Okay.
And it becomes, part of my concern is that it becomes so lengthy that community members who may want to interact in those sessions might not be able to sit through 3 hours, possibly 4 hours of that. I don't know how long. I have a lot of questions.
Okay.
So I because I was not here for the workshop last summer, I really don't know how those go and how lengthy they can be.
Well, I think we would probably try to limit them to 2 hours because
Yeah,
that's about
yeah.
all
Well, that- yeah.
at a time. And
Mhm.
we can certainly hold
Yeah.
another one if another one is necessary, the
Yeah.
third one. So that sounds good.
And part of that's due to my ignorance as to how much time is generally spent in the budget discussion workshops.
Okay. Thoughts?
I mean, if we need to reschedule one, we'll do it
Mhm.
after a couple of budget meetings.
Okay. Yeah.
Works.
You good?
I'm not opposed to having, if we need to have one outside, I'm
An extra.
absolutely fine with that as well, but I do think it'd be kind of interesting for the public to have a
I
chance
know
to
we can
hear.
get through the first one and see, see if we need to go beyond that.
Credits and debits.
Yeah.
And so you agree
Yes.
with that? So our
Yes.
Our second council meeting in August would be a budget workshop. Okay, do we need to, it says consider, so we need to vote on that? Or we just have a consensus? We've heard that. You would like for us to, wouldn't you?
I love a vote.
Okay. Chair will entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion that the second meeting of August is utilized primarily to go over the budget.
I'll second that.
Okay, moved and seconded. If no further discussion, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Are we having executive session this evening?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Thank you all for attending. Our meeting of July 16th is now adjourned.